internets. Welcome to another episode of Sultans and Sneakers. This is your host, Mahin Islam. And on today's show, I've got an old friend of mine, Omar Usman, CEO of Muslim Matters, right? Is that I know that's your recent side thing. And then Omar's been working in IT forever, right? As far as I know. Other than that, why don't you introduce yourself to the folks here who may not be familiar with what you're doing?
Sure. So my name is Omar Usman. Like you said, I work full-time in IT. Right now, specifically with learning technology, been doing that for the last about 3 years. And then on the side, so not CEO, but it's executive director at Muslim Matters. When I took that over a few months ago, and then just kind of working on my own little side projects. Nothing. Right now, everything's on pause because of quarantine. So
right, and you got your own. Muslim Matters is like probably the most well-known blog, so to speak, for English-speaking Muslims. Is that a fair way to characterize it?
I don't know if it's the most well known, but it's definitely one of the most popular in terms of traffic, and also it's just been around for a long time. So I think about 13 years now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been there for a bit.
And you got your own podcast as well?
Got my own podcast and YouTube channel. I kind of paused everything before Ramadan and haven't resumed, but the plan is to pick all that stuff up hopefully in the next couple of weeks, inshallah.
Yeah, sometimes I noticed that like when you take a break, it's hard to get momentum back.
Yeah, big time.
You know, it's just like the whole thing of you get into a rhythm. I actually was continuing to produce in Ramadan, so it didn't really affect. But like I know when I go on vacation, it would take me a couple of weeks. Like you think you're gonna start right when you get back, and it doesn't happen that way. You got to get your routine. I mean, even Ramadan, my routine is still screwed up past Ramadan because I woke up at like 3:30 today.
Are you not working?
No, I'm actually furloughed until the end of July.
Oh, subhanAllah.
Yeah. So I'm actually just like, so I got more time to work on this kind of stuff, right? But it is. Yeah. If I had to work, I'd probably be waking up at like 9, and then getting on a call and then like taking a nap around 2 or 3, and then just checking my email every half an hour or so. So let me shut off my note. I got my WhatsApp open. I'm gonna shut it off. If either of us gets cuts off, we'll just manage. We'll just message on WhatsApp. But anyways, I want to cut to the chase. The reason I wanted to bring you on because this podcast and the theme of this show is about understanding people's worldviews, right? And I think worldviews happen in a few different ways, like your lived experience, how you grew up, what your parents taught you, but also what you learn through either your environment, which is again a lived experience, but information you consume, right? And books is one of those things that is a very critical aspect of that. And I've always respected you as being like a reader. Probably out of everyone that I know on a personal level, you're probably the guy I would affiliate as the reader. If I had to say this, like, everyone knows people know about Ryan Holiday, right? He's like in the influencer world, probably the well-known, like the most well-known guy. I might consider you like the Ryan Holiday of the Muslim world, so to speak. I don't know if that's a fair comparison, or if you ever thought
I would have to be
that.
writing to be known as something like that.
Yeah, but as from a reading point of view, right? I know you do some writing though, but like, talk to me a little bit about your history, like reading from have you always been would you call a reader, or am I even am I misrepresenting you by calling you a reader, do you think?
No, I mean, I think I kind of like that as a title, just in the sense that I think there's an indication of all of us are always trying to learn and better ourselves, and exactly like you said, improve our worldview, right? So for me, the worldview always comes down to the intersection of 3 things, which is the mix between your education, your personal experiences, and your personal relationships. Because no one else on earth has that same exact intersection that you do of those things, right? And so I think with reading, it's kind of the shortcut to obviously learning as much as you can, but also broadening those perspectives, learning things from how others are looking at it. In terms of, you asked like personal history, I would say alhamdulillah, my parents always had an emphasis on reading and learning and studying and things of that sort. I think one thing that maybe accelerated it for me a little bit was I was nationally competitive in debate when I was in high school. And so just the sheer uh, nature of that activity meant I was constantly reading books, because the way that you got your edge at a tournament, or the edge against the opponent, so to speak, was you had to either find information that they didn't have that better proved your point, or you had to, in some instances, understand their arguments better than they did so you could refute it.
Hmm. Right. So like when you like, I'm not familiar with the high school debate scene. Like what kind of, so what would the topics be? Very diverse, you would say?
Yes, like I mean, this is dating, but this was a while ago. So when I did it in high school, they had the same topic every year. So one year would be like foreign policy toward China. One year may have been something like renewable energy, uh, juvenile crime, things like that. So there would be broad subjects, and then you'd be forced to kind of dive in and find your niche and find different things. So you had to familiarize yourself with not just what you might be presenting, but then how to refute everyone else's stuff as well. So you had to immerse yourself into both sides of every single issue.
Okay. Um, so was that kind of got you in the habit, so to speak, right? Would you, it's, when I think about, if I think about my own perspective as a reader, I was a big time reader as a kid, like a young kid, like first grade, second grade. I mean, I would read like 50 books a summer, like on average, in elementary school. I mean, these are smaller books, but you're getting through, that's all you're doing. There's no, I mean, my parents
It's,
had like
it's
three channels.
establishing a habit of reading either way.
Yeah. But I got away from that. But I remember at the time, it's also driven by like a real interest in stuff, right? The first topic I was interested in as a kid, I remember that I can recall, was US presidents. And I'm not sure why that was. Ronald Reagan was the president at that time.
Yeah,
Again, dating ourselves here. But
we're 80s
uh
kids. It's all right.
yeah. But I was just fascinated. And actually, I think at the time when I was in first grade, I wanted to be the president. It was interesting, and I had memorized all the presidents' names. It was just a really weird fascination looking back. I really don't know what triggered it. And I remember, and then a friend of mine told me, "Well, you can't be president because you weren't born here." And then my mom was like, "Well, don't let that And it's funny when you're a kid, um, your parents tend to be like, we always talk about, like, especially South Asian parents or immigrant parents, how they tell us to be practical. But when I was a kid, I don't remember my parents weren't like telling me, oh, that's not practical when you're first grade. You get that when you're like middle school, high school age, right?
Yep.
I don't know if you had experience. I even, on a side note, you remember Bobby Bonilla played for the Mets?
Yeah. Yep.
He signed this huge contract in like 91.
Yeah.
And
Bobby Bonilla Day.
yeah. And it was on, we used to get Time Magazine, and it was in Time Magazine. And my mom was like, yeah, if you want to go, like, I was 10 years old. She's like, yeah, if you want to go play baseball, you might be able to do this. Right. And I didn't really think much of it, but like, because we talk a lot now about how our our folks always encourage us to be the product. Even today, my dad's like 38. He's like, hey, well, why don't you go like get this MBA or something? Because
Yeah, my dad does the same thing. He's always talking to me like, you never, because my little sister got a master's degree,
yeah.
but I'm kind of like, I was like, you should go back, get a degree, and I'm kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not interested in it. Yeah. So, and I asked him like, well, why would I do it? And then he doesn't have a good answer. And then the conversation kind of stops. But, so I was so throughout elementary school, I was a reader. And I think what happened was somehow or another, like, as I got into like following sports and other distractions, um, I had this love of learning as a kid that kind of just got sucked away. And I don't know. I can't say it's all because of sports. I think I think you want to play outside with your friends more. You aren't doing it as much, and then it kind of like fades away, so to speak. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you had an experience before even middle school or like similar to that as a child, reading.
I mean, I've always liked reading, but it wasn't always reading to learn. So, like I remember in middle school, high school-ish, just plowing through like John Grisham books over and over and over again. You know, I probably read like The Firm and The Pelican Brief and A Time to Kill like 20 times each or something. Like same thing like over the summer when there's nothing else to do, uh, just plowing through them. And like my kids do the same thing now with Harry Potter books. You know, they just keep reading them and all that stuff. So uh, I think alhamdulillah, I've always had a habit of reading. I wouldn't say it's always been reading to learn though.
Okay. So, as an adult now, so then you move on to college. I didn't find myself reading a lot casually in college, just because it was like just enough. You're just trying to keep up with your assignments, right? And extracurricular activities you have and all that, right? Similar for you, did you continue the habit in college?
Yeah, I did. I think for me in college was, uh, you know, when obviously we've been born and raised Muslim, but you kind of get reinterested or reinvigorated with trying to learn the religion. And I think for me that happened in college. So uh, that was a time where I would kind of just tried to get my hands on as much stuff as I could and read it. Because especially because at that, you know, in college you have time. Everyone who's in college thinks they're super busy, but once you leave college, you realize that you had a whole ton of free time.
Yeah. You know, now that you mentioned, like, I actually do remember reading like Islamic books, so to speak. I think I was thinking of kind of like a more general books and kind of the topics I want to get into today.
Yeah,
But
that stuff I probably didn't read as much
yeah.
just because you're already doing so much for your,
Mhm.
you know, your classes and your curriculum. So
Right, right. Yeah, because I remember we would take like Al-Maghrib classes, right? And Al-Maghrib would have their own recommended reading. I remember I used to read. I remember I remember back then we used to be serious. Like
yeah,
before the class would come, you get like the recommended reading list. So you get those books
and
and try
prep
to read
before the
them all.
class. Yeah.
And now it's like, man, if I go to a class now, it's only to get lunch. you know, pretty much, you know. But okay, so talk to me a little bit about like today. Like what is your reading lifestyle look like?
I don't know if there's a particular lifestyle. You know, I don't think I have like a particular system or anything like that. I'm the type of person that just has a bunch of stuff lying around everywhere, and whatever I feel like looking at, I'll look at.
Hmm.
So, you know, even now, I've probably got like 2 books on my desk. I probably have 4 or 5 on the little coffee table behind me. I've got another couple of stacks like next to me on my shelf that I want to go through. I've got stuff on my Kindle. I probably think I have a book or two next to my bed, but it's just whatever, whenever. Um, I'll just pick up and read whatever looks interesting at that moment in time. If I get into something, I'll probably plow through it and try to finish it up pretty quick. But I'm usually in the middle of a few books at the same time.
Do you subscribe to the opinion that like let's say you buy a book, right? And then you're like 2 chapters in and it's just like dead. Do you feel compelled because you bought the book to complete it, or do you just cut your losses and put it down?
So I don't look at it as cutting. So I think there's a couple of things I would want to unpack here, just because
Sure.
there's a lot of like attitudes that people have toward this. So one is I don't look at each individual book as an investment. All right, that like I spent $20 on this book, and so now if I don't finish it, I somehow wasted my money. I don't look at it that way. I look at it as over the course of a month or a year, I might buy X number of books. I may read, you know, a subset of them. And even of the ones that I read, a handful of them might be useful, a handful of them might not. But you have to go through some of those ones that aren't that good to find the good stuff. And so overall, it's an investment in your education. Not every single book is going to be a hit, right? Just like we go to college, we take a whole bunch of classes. Not all of them are relevant, not all of them are necessary, but it's part of the overall education to get that degree, so to speak, right? So for me, I'm not looking at it at a individual basis as a book per book type of thing. So that's one is I think we have to change how we approach like spending money on books in that sense. It's an overall investment, not, oh, this I spent $10 on this one, it didn't work out, so I like wasted and lost my money. I don't see it that way. Because you have to know what's there to know what the good stuff is sometimes. That's one part of it. In terms of finishing a book early or quitting a book early, I think it really depends on the situation, right? So I think that there's one concept, which is what I think Seth Godin said this. He said that sometimes you know the punchline of a book pretty quickly. And so you start reading a book and you get, like you said, 2 chapters in, you get the point. Like you understand exactly what the book's talking about. There might be 10 more chapters that are all reinforcing that same point, but you got it, right? And if it's a book that you don't need to build an excessive level of expertise in, then I just quit, right? So I'll give you a good example. There's a book that I picked up recently called Seculosity, which is written by a Christian author talking about how in the absence of a faith in God, people deify other pursuits, right? And so if you don't believe in God and have a religion or a faith, then politics can become your religion, or a keto lifestyle can become your religion, or any number of things. So the book is good, the premise is good, but after the first, let's say 2 or 3 chapters, like I got the point.
All he's doing is he just keeps providing more and more examples to justify the point.
Exactly. And so this was a topic that I was interested in. I thought it was intriguing. And once I got the crux of it, I was like, okay, I don't really need to keep reading this over and over and over again. So I can quit that book. I don't consider that to be a waste of the book. I thought that it was useful information and a good perspective. And I've got it now tucked away if I ever need to revisit that subject again, right? On the other hand, because I'm involved in the Qalam Khatib workshop and public speaking project, now that's a topic that I have an investment in trying to build my expertise, because we teach that as a workshop every single year. And so I have to make sure that I'm on top of that curriculum and exposing myself to every single thing that's out there. And so I might pick up a public speaking book that's garbage, and I start reading it, and I know that the book sucks, and I know that it's not really going to have much to offer, but I still might force myself to finish going through the whole book just to see maybe if there is a little nugget or a bullet point that I don't have already in my toolbox. And so it's worth plowing through that book, even if it's bad, to try to glean those little extra pieces of information. But that's because it's a subject I'm trying to go deep on.
Okay. So let's say, I want to talk a little bit about that. So how do you, so for example, listeners of the show know that I have a kind of this somewhat of an interest in Christianity, specifically like their theology, the history of the Trinity, and these kind of things, right? And it's something that I'm just, I guess it's the only like from a nonfiction point of view, it's like one of those things that I'm really interested in right now. And sometimes you find a text that it's kind of dry, but you want to get through it. What's the mindset? But then what's the mindset you take to push through? Is there something that you have to I imagine that's not going to be a casual, I'm just hanging out and sitting on the couch, pop it open, go through it. It's almost like it's got to be more intentional, right? Because it's like more work. It's a little, it doesn't come as easy, so to speak. Like, how would you approach that?
So at some point there has to be a reason as to why you're reading that book, right? So some books I might have a passing interest in, and if it gets boring, I'll just stop, because if I don't learn everything in that book, is there going to be a real negative consequence to me personally or professionally or whatever? Probably not. And then I'll move on. But if it is, let's say like a public speaking book, in that case, I have a very strong why, in the sense that I know in the back of my mind that for that project or that program or that seminar to be as successful as possible, it means I have to trudge through even the bad books to make sure that what we teach is the best possible material. So that's the thing that has to give you juice. If it wasn't that subject, if it was another subject like, I don't know, let's say it's politics, right? So let's say someone wrote, or even, let's say it's a biography of some political figure. I might have an interest in that figure and start reading it, but if the book gets boring, if I don't have a real compelling reason to learn about that person, I'm going to stop reading it.
Okay.
So if you want to, I mean, you can force yourself, but you can only force yourself if there's a really compelling reason for you to actually finish that book.
So how like are you at a point now with you've been reading now for all these years? Do you take like I guess how do you figure out what to read? Is it something do you follow like lists? Like for example, like we mentioned Ryan Holiday. Ryan Holiday says like he sends this monthly email out with
Yeah.
these books, and there's these little summaries and stuff in it, and I look through them, and they generally don't like, but it gives me ideas. I don't really, I don't think I've used too much of them, to be
Yeah, I
honest,
haven't either.
because it's all over the place, right? Um, and that would be an interesting question to ask him, like what his mindset is, like, well, what about this topic compelled him to actually go and read the book? Because
Right.
if you're reading somebody's 300 page book, I mean that's several. I mean, I don't know how long that would take.
It's a commitment.
Yeah. How do you go like for example, the best book that I've probably read in the last few years is thanks to you, because you had a book club I was in a couple years back, right?
Yeah.
Like
Deep
deep
work.
work, right? Yeah, probably. How did you find, like, is this something that now I realize Cal Newport was a pretty fairly well-known guy, especially for someone with no social media presence. Like,
Yeah.
but how did like a book like that? How does that come up? Like, walk me through how that a book like that gets on your radar, and then how you process it to a point where even you recommend it in like a book club.
So that one, because I was doing research for Fic of Social Media, it got on my radar.
Okay.
I mean, plain and simple. So when I started writing on social media stuff, I just started picking up books, and then that's where you're like on Amazon just looking for stuff on those topics, and then you start getting exposed to those authors, following them on social media, listening to those podcasts. And then what ends up happening even with Cal Newport, even though he doesn't have a social media presence, when that book was coming out, he went and gave interviews on like all these different podcasts that I was following. And so, he's on this person's podcast and that person's podcast. And then I'm hearing him talk about the book and what he has to say. So I'm like, okay, I want to go pick up that book and read it. And then I read it and I'm like, oh, okay, this was great. And so now I want to recommend it to other people. In terms of now, like how I pick what I'm reading, I would say that it changes over time too, right? Like it depends on where you are and what you're doing. I would say that there was a certain point in time where anything that was kind of a bestseller type of thing or that people were recommending, I would grab it just to see like what's interesting about this book that everyone's reading it and recommending it. I think now and again, consequence of getting older is you start to get a little bit more focused on prioritizing certain subjects or topics or what you want to work on. So I've got in my mind a couple of long-term projects that I want to work on. And so my reading is probably more shaped by those things than necessarily other people's recommendations or what's a bestseller or this or that.
One of the pitfalls that I've seen people, even like myself, get into is that you'll encounter an individual who's like very well read, and they'll be quoting from different sources. Hamza Yusuf is a good example, right? Because he'll be giving like a talk and he'll be quoting like Aquinas and some Greek literature, all this like classic stuff, right? And then you're like, dang, I want to be like that. So then you start like trying to read it and nothing works. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Because so there's a few things there. Number one, I might like, okay, I'm hosting a podcast, right? I'm not gonna necessarily, it might be useful in some ways, but I'm not gonna be like giving like lectures in that sense, in his context. When people encounter that, like this idea to like, oh, I'm impressed by this person because he's quoting all this stuff and he must be well read, and then I want to motivate. That motivates me to read. How do we check that? How would you check it?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the pushback would be like, why? Like, why do you want people to perceive you a certain way? If it's ego driven in the sense that, it's funny. So I'll tell you, like, one thing that we say in the workshop is we tell people speak in simple language. Like speak at like a 6th grade level, because using, big words and big vocabulary and fancy phrases might make you sound sophisticated, it's still self-serving in a sense, because you're more concerned with people's perception of you versus did you serve the audience by giving them something that was useful to them. And if your focus is on the audience, then you'll simplify it to the point that they can understand. In terms of seeing people that, they have that intellectual capacity, they have that ability to speak and kind of give off that perception of someone who's really, intellectually powerful and sophisticated and all those things. Like, yeah, it is enticing to say, I want to be like that. And I would say maybe let that be a little bit of motivation to push yourself, because the reality is, for most people, the trap is not that they're reading too much and that they're going to fall into sounding overly intelligent and sophisticated. For most people, frankly, the trap is that they're not reading enough and don't know enough. So let that be a driver to like increase your learning, but again, center it back with, I guess, what our religion always says, like what your intention is in learning something.
Well, I think the trap is this, and is that you get impressed by this person's speech or whatever. You go and get all these books, and then you like barely make it through the prologue, and you're like falling asleep on it.
Yeah.
And then you read nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like you got out, you've like gone out and gotten all this stuff, and then like it gets you, it'll pretty much gets you. You just wasted more time, in a sense. That I was thinking of more along in those traps, in trap in that sense. All right. So what I like to do is actually go through. So if there's different types of books, right? So a book like Deep Work is a book that I kind of read straight through. Is that how you would approach it, or is this something that was it on the thing that you'd go back and forth to, and then slowly complete it? Like, looking back now, how would you approach a book like this?
I don't ever make up my mind. It really depends on the book. Like, so Deep Work, I got into it, right?
Okay.
And so I probably did read it all the way through. Look, it's not dissimilar from a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
There's some TV shows that you're going to binge watch, like as soon as one episode ends, the other one starts and you're watching it.
Yeah.
There's other ones where even if the episode is 20 minutes long, you might split it up and watch it over like 4 days. But, another show you're watching like 3 hours in one day just because you're totally into it. For me, the book is kind of the same thing. So Deep Work, I got into. And look, and in all fairness, like Deep Work, I really got into it and I knocked it out. His other book, the one that he wrote right after, Digital Minimalism, I took a look at it and I went through a little bit, but it didn't do it for me. So I, kind of glanced through, got what I needed out of it, but I didn't sit and just plow through it cover to cover. There's there's other books too where, so I'll give you one example. There's a book called Range that came out, I think, last year. And the author was on a bunch of sports podcasts and stuff because he'd written about sports before. And so, I heard him talking about, and even his opening chapter is like a parallel, comparing and contrasting Roger Federer and Tiger Woods. So, if you're into sports, it's cool to geek out on this book, right? So I heard him on a couple of podcasts. I was like, oh, cool. This looks really interesting. Good premise. After I got the book, I read the first 2 or 3 chapters and I was kind of like, yeah, I got the point. Between that and the podcast, like I got it. And I looked through the table of contents. I might have read maybe 2 more chapters that looked interesting. And then that was it. Just because I couldn't get into the book. And I'd already gotten what I needed out of it. So I was like, okay, cool. But on the flip side, if that was a topic that someone is really into, they may have plowed through it cover to cover.
Yeah.
It goes back to your personal interest in what you're trying to learn, what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Do you set yourself like a goal? Have you ever done that? Like, okay, every month I'm going to get through this. Every year I'm going to get through these many books.
No.
Never. It just kind of like, so it seems to me
my thing that I always try to keep in the back of my head is 25 pages a day.
Oh, okay.
And it doesn't matter if that, that's like 2 books that are 10 pages each or just 25 pages of a random book. It's just forcing yourself in the habit of 25 pages a day. What it does is it's short enough that you can do it in a little while. And it's enough to get you started so that if you are into it, you'll end up reading a lot more. But over the course of a year, you'll actually end up finishing quite a few books just by sticking with that habit.
Okay. Do you count audiobooks in that? Do you use audiobooks, H?
I don't use audiobooks. For so two reasons. One is I'm one of those people that like writes all over all my books. So I'm constantly like highlighting, underlining, like writing things in the margins, folding pages over. Like my books are a mess when I'm done with them. And I just haven't found a way to do that productively with audiobooks. So, because me, if I'm listening to something and I'm like, oh, I need to note that for something, I can't do it if it's audio, because if it's audio, it means I'm driving or I'm walking or something like that. So that's why I personally don't do audiobooks. Instead, I'll just do podcasts or things like that. With that said, I did the Trevor Noah book, Born a Crime, was amazing. That's probably the only audiobook I've ever enjoyed, but that was more storytelling than anything else.
So you mentioned you write in your books. Like I didn't like tell you this in advance. Do you have anything that's like close by you that has notes in it so you can show that maybe we can like maybe show like how that looks like?
You know what? Let me grab Deep Work.
All right, since we're talking about deep work, sure.
Okay. Oh, so this is a good one.
Yeah. So if you're on a podcast app, sorry, you're missing out here. But if you're on YouTube, you'll catch it.
So in Deep Work, you'll notice here I've got folded over paper, which is I printed out some book summaries and stuck them in the front.
Okay.
And then in the front, there was a couple of like really important things I wanted to call out. So I just wrote down the page numbers and a couple of notes.
Yeah.
And then aside from that, I'll show you. Okay, so here's a random page. I don't even know what's highlighted here, but I have stuff underlined, and then I just make notes out in the margin.
Okay.
On some pages, I'll put like here, I've got notes. I've got like an asterisk to like draw my eye to it. Same thing on the other side. So I'll just go through, I'll underline, I'll circle words, I'll make notes. I might write questions out for follow-up. It's just whatever. There's no real, it's just whatever comes to mind, I write down. So if something I read reminds me of like a video that I saw, I'll just write down the name, like, hey, check out this video in relation to this paragraph. So I'll just do stuff like that.
So that's what you would like. This gets into the whole like interacting with the book, kind of thing, right? Where because sometimes I think we're very programmed in a way that this is important. This is the good theme here, so I'm gonna highlight. But you're not like so it seems like as you're reading. Like it's similar when you're having a conversation with a podcast. Like I didn't think about like my background as being a presidential expert in first grade.
Yeah.
But similar when you're reading a book, you want to think about things like you're like your mind is kind of like going in the and then and as those things pop up, you want to kind of connect those back.
And look, and you mentioned at the beginning like your unique perspective or whatever. Your unique perspective is how you connect different ideas to different things. So if reading something in Deep Work reminds me of something Greg Popovich said, that might not be the same idea. That might not be the same connection a lot of people make, but for me in my head, it makes sense.
Right.
And, there's the idea that you develop insights by the cross-pollination of your ideas. And then there's a less politically correct way of saying that too.
I got you. I mean, it sounded fine to me. The other thing I think people, like even myself, one thing I get hung up on is that, so for example, you'll have like, see, I've got these different color highlighters. I got them from work, okay? And then you're like, oh, I've got to color code everything somehow. And then it seems like you don't even know what the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
But that seems like another trap where I think there's almost this, if you're going to write in the book, then like there tends to be like the subconscious desire to like make your notes look pretty.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Is that have you experienced that yourself or with others?
No, I mean I've seen it a lot because I think we live in a culture where even your notes get Instagrammed or put on Pinterest, and so everyone's trying to make everything look perfect. And I think for me this is the learning only happens if it's messy. And so there is no rhyme or reason. There's no color coding. There's nothing. It's just whatever pops into my head, I write down.
Right. And whatever highlighter is popping laying around, you'll grab that. Doesn't matter if it's like the rest of the book was orange and. I'm gonna use
I'm a
yellow.
little bit like anal about some of that stuff.
Okay.
So I'll pick out one pen for that book, and then I'll just clip that pen to that book, so it's always attached to it.
Okay. Have you ever tried, like, I don't know, Ryan Holiday has the whole method where he uses the index cards and he like
Yeah,
kind of has
the common book or whatever.
yeah. Is that something you've ever tried or thought about?
I've thought about it. I've always been scared of doing index cards because I'm afraid they're just going to get lost or messed up. However, I will share that there's an app called Notion for note taking.
Okay.
Apparently, it's been around for a while. I just now got it. But there are some tutorials online as to how to use Notion to create that type of a common book and track all those types of things. So that might be something. If we stay quarantined for a while, that might become a quarantine project, which is just to go back through books that I've read and take the notes and pull out the quotes and all that stuff and throw them into the app.
That you like it would be like an iPad or iPhone app, right? Or
Yeah.
like, but that way might be something where if you're listening. So I joined this book club not your book club, and because I was in your book club 2 years ago, right? And I remember
Yeah.
we can get to that, but I was in a book club started like last summer, so you might, as I'm talking about it, you might know which book club it is. The book
I think
club,
I got you. By the smile on your face, I got you.
the book club, it says you can read like 100 books a year or something, right?
Oh, I was thinking of a different one, but now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so then I joined it, and then it's like, well, it's not like reading, it's all audiobooks.
Yeah.
And it's all, and I'm like, it's kind of a scammy little pitch, but okay, let's
Are you
see
listening are you having to listen to audiobooks at like triple speed or whatever?
no, it's 1.5 speed, but like what's funny is that you like, and then what you do is you play this, you gotta, I don't know if you've heard of this.
No.
So but the interesting thing about it, I don't know if this is worth 100. It cost me $100 to join this book club for the year. I don't know if this might be, maybe long term it might be worth it. I don't know, but the idea is you got the toddler brain and the adult brain. So your
Right.
toddler brain wants to pray. Your adult brain can only do something for like 10, 15 minutes, and then your toddler brain like wants to play. So the idea is you're listening to an audiobook while you're playing like a game on your phone. Have you ever heard of this?
I haven't heard of it, but I mean, I think it works for one learning style. You know what I mean? If someone's primarily like an audio learner, or they can process things that way, then that works. Like for me, that's not my learning style at all. I can't just, and I mean, I'll do that. I'll play a podcast. I mean, I'll listen to a podcast while I'm playing a game or something like that. But that's because I'm treating the podcast as passive listening. You know what I mean? So I might pop on like Bill Simmons and listen to him and Ryan Russillo talking about the NBA or the Jordan documentary or something, right? Like I can listen to that podcast while I play a game. But if I'm trying to actively learn something, then I need the reinforcement of handwriting and underlining and notating things and looking at it. So again, it goes back to what your purpose is with an audiobook. Like that's why I said, like the Trevor Noah book, Born a Crime, for me worked as an audiobook because I could listen to it in the car and follow along and be engaged with it. And yeah, I could do other things, and it was a useful book to listen to, but I wouldn't be able to take deep work and listen to that as an audiobook, just because I know I need to take notes, I need to mark things up. And then especially because with something like deep work, because it has relevance to something else that I'm working on, in the sense that I'm planning on maybe writing a blog post that incorporates something from deep work or something of that nature, then there's no way the audiobook is going to be helpful to me with any of those goals.
No, but don't you think, like, let's say you mentioned, well, we don't know that, we have to maybe experiment it, like this app called Notion. So you got it on your phone, you're playing this game, you listen to this audiobook, and when that thing pops up, the audiobook that you want to get, you switch over to Notion, record it.
So I guess it depends on your listening habits, right?
Okay.
If I'm listening to something, I'm not sitting on my couch. If I'm listening to something, it means I'm driving, or I'm walking around, or I'm exercising, or I'm doing the dishes. Like if I'm listening to something, it means my body's doing something else.
I got you. I see so for me, what I've realized is
that might be, I mean, everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
That's just my listening habits.
So I think the key takeaway here is just to understand, like, figure out what works best for you and go with that.
Exactly.
I've actually found that, like, podcasts work for me when I'm doing chore. I must be listening to something if I'm going to be doing any kind of chore.
Yeah.
Like require. Otherwise, like I hate doing chores, and at least this makes the chore somewhat like enjoyable, right?
Exactly. Like if you're putting away your laundry, like the bonus of getting to listen to something that you wanted to listen to makes it like, okay,
Yeah.
at least I can
Right.
listen to this while I knock this out.
And the thing is, I get in trouble because sometimes my wife might be doing something, and then she's like wanting to like talk to me while I'm doing these chores, and I keep pulling my AirPods out, and it's like, or if I can't hear her, she gets mad. Yeah, I got my AirPods in. I don't know if that happens, you know. And that's like, all right, leave me alone. Let me do my chores. Don't like try to like meddle in my chores. Let me do it. If it doesn't, if you got to fix it later, so be it. Because podcasts I can do if it's like cook, if I'm cooking, if I'm doing that kind of thing, I'll listen to a podcast. Audiobooks, I actually will sit down. So I'll do the whole thing where I'll sit in like a rocking chair and have coffee or something to eat or drink, and then like have the game going and I'm listening to it.
Okay.
At least that, and it depends on the type of audiobook. So if it's like the audiobook that I've been like kind of dabbling in, not straight through for the longest time, is a book called Coders. Clive Thompson, I think. It's about like computer programmers, basically, right? I don't know what it was about it that got me interested. It was just like this idea. I think for the past, I can't pinpoint the time, but like even before this pandemic, I've been thinking about like possible career changes, right?
Yeah.
And this whole idea of like doing remote work was kind of sounded interesting. And and also maybe doing like being able to, because of the ability to like be like a travel live like a nomad lifestyle in a way, right? Where we don't, because my wife and I, we've talked about like living in other countries or something, get the kids more exposure to different cultures and stuff, and like thinking about like, and then looking what kind of work those people do. So a lot of that's more computer software based work, whereas I'm in hard manufacturing right now. So that I think that's what triggered it. But then it wasn't awesome enough to like keep me through. Like a book that would like an audio book that I would like just knock out in like 3 days would be like a David Goggins. I don't know if you ever read David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me.
No.
And then there's another one called Jesse Itzler, Living with a Seal. With these like, and some of these are like almost like it's almost like entertainment,
Yeah.
in a way. And those I think I can do while doing other chores and also sitting down. But a book that's a little heavy, or a book that's something that I'm not like, Coders is something that I've got to like dedicate to. I've got to like sit down and like have the game going and my coffee and like put out like, and I keep playing until I run out. I keep reading it, listening until I run out of lives. That's pretty much how and there's 2 games you go. So you run out of lives on one game, and then you go to the other game, you run out of lives. And then that's generally can eat up about 30 to 40 minutes. If you sit down. So
if it works, man.
Yeah, I'm just like, I feel like as I'm listening to you talk, I think the challenge is like more like a daily consistency. So that might happen for me like once a week versus like once a day. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, how would you? I don't know if you have this book or not, but maybe you can get an example of it. This is the Shama'il Muhammadiyah.
Yeah, I got it actually.
Yeah, a book like this. What is it like? How do you approach a book like this? Do you just go straight?
You want my honest answer?
Sure.
I'll tell you what I did. I took some nice pictures and posted them on Instagram. No, I'm not. I mean, I did, but I'm not trying to belittle the book. I would anything like that. But, I think I don't know the people who published it or their intention in publishing it, but they obviously wanted to make something that was appealing aesthetically, and I think mimic some of like other forms of book publishing that have been done, or art or Ottoman. I don't know the details, but I mean they were intentional in how they arranged the artwork in the book and the text and things like that to like mimic some other things that had been done before. So. To me, it's not necessarily a book that's meant to be read through cover to cover. I would say this would be like the Islamic equivalent of like a coffee table book, where it's nice to have out to look at and things like that. And it's a good reference as well. Like if I needed to look something up and I'd go look it up in it. But I don't know that it's just like a read again, unless you wanted to. For me, it's not a read cover to cover type of book.
Yeah, I guess the nice thing about a book like this is that you just focus on like one narration, right?
Yeah.
And then which will take you like 2-3 pages. It's not a huge like commitment. And then you can kind of go through the thing, and that smells really good, by the way.
Yeah, I mean,
I just opened it in the middle of the book. It smells
and to
really
be fair,
nice.
it's not a book that's like easy on the eyes to like read for a long
Yeah.
period of time, just because the text is at an angle and all of that.
Right. Here's another one I've got for you that I recently pulled off my shelf to like try to figure out how to make eggs. I don't know if you I don't know if you got this book.
So I'll tell you something. I'm working on an article right now critiquing that book.
Really? Okay.
I know it's an old book, and
Yeah.
for listeners, Mahin's holding up the 4-Hour Chef. But in quarantine, I've been trying to learn how to cook, and I remember getting that book when it came out, and trying to learn how to cook when it came out, and I didn't get anywhere. And now I'm getting much further, alhamdulillah, obviously because of time and being home and all that, being part of it. But I fundamentally don't agree with some of what he says in the book about how to learn anything. So that's something that I haven't formulated my thoughts completely, but it's something I'm getting into.
Yeah, my next project for this book is to like the whole meta learning of languages.
By the way, if Mahin, if you want to see an impractical book, let me show you something.
All right.
Hold on. So Seth Godin did, I think it was a Kickstarter or something like that, where there was like a limited edition print and all of that. The book was like $120 or something obscene.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the book, and it's gigantic. Like let me hold up deep work for like for scale.
Yeah.
There's deep work on the bottom corner.
It's like
and
a
this
quarter.
book is like 4 times the size.
Right.
It doesn't fit on a bookshelf, and it's heavy. This is probably like 30 pounds, if not, or something like that.
Mm.
And it's beautiful inside. Like it's like magazine quality paper.
Yeah.
And it's got like photos and everything, but I don't know what to do with it. I really like Seth Godin, and I was like, oh, I'm going to get it. I think my name is in there. Because I think he printed the names of some of the backers that had contributed at a certain level or something.
Yeah.
So I think my name might even be in there or something like that. I got to go look. But I don't know. It's too big to keep on the table because it takes up too much space. It won't fit on my bookshelf unless I lie it down. So right now it's just on the floor of my office under a table.
Like, what's the book of like?
It's just a collection of his writings, I think.
Okay, so you might already have it in his, because you have. I assume you have his other books.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, let's ask him. Like, I've heard of him. Right? He's like a marketing guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, what about him specifically? Maybe we can talk a little bit about like authors you like, because like generally I have all Tim Ferriss's book. So you're the one. I didn't hear about Tim Ferriss except from you back like 12 years ago, because I think you had talked about the 4-Hour Work Week, right?
Yeah, that was like on fire back then.
Yeah. And then I have 4-Hour Chef, 4-Hour Body. I've got all Tools of Titans is interesting. Tools of Titans, I think I've been thinking about doing something like writing something like Tools of Titans, based upon like what I've done with hosting, like mostly Mad Mamluks. Like having a section, because you have got these different types of people, right? You've got like you got your intellectuals, your activists,
right, your
scholars, your athletes, these artists, and you have these sections, and you just kind of like have these short like 1-page profile things. It just probably it's something that's just been an idea. It's something that has been recommended by others as well. Just something that I just need to sit down and like actually intentionalize, so to speak, and say, yeah, I am going to do this. But yeah, so as far as authors like Seth Godin, for example, like What is it about? Like, how do you get into an author? I guess that's the question.
I think I get into an author when they're able to give me either perspective or information um, that I feel I either wouldn't get otherwise or is beneficial or useful to me too, right? So, you know, and that changes over time too. Like if there's very few people that I would say I've been following for like a long time. Seth Godin might be one of them that I've actually been following him for a long time. But that's much more the exception than the rule. And I would say like it should actually be a sign of growth that like you read one person, you get what they have, and then you need to at some point graduate from that person and move on to somebody else. I think Gary Vee is like a perfect example of that. Like if someone's been watching Gary Vee for the last 7 years and they're still watching Gary Vee, like that's probably a problem. That you keep trying to hype yourself up on hustle this and hustle that and do this and do that and like the Gary Vee lifestyle and you know all that stuff. Like if you've been listening to that stuff for like 7 years and haven't made any real tangible change or progress, that's very problematic. You know, even stuff like Tim Ferriss, I would say that someone, you know, I would say I probably stopped listening to his podcast. I stopped reading his books. I stopped following his stuff, not because his stuff used to be better and now it got worse, but I think I got what I needed from him and now it's time to move on to something else.
What was, so when you were consuming Tim Ferriss, what is it that you were getting from him?
I think with 4 Hour Work Week, because I think that's the one that got everyone hooked on him to begin with, is that was at the time, it was such a different perspective and a different approach to looking at something. And the stuff that he was saying and articulating were things that I think no one else was really saying. So the idea of, for example, fire your problematic customers, you know, that would not be something that you would normally think of. That, hey, we can be much more efficient if we get rid of our problem customers. Like that would be antithetical to any type of business thinking, which is retain everyone at all costs, right? So at that time, it was a bit contrarian, it was a bit different, and it pushed back on the way everyone was doing things. Not that his way was like the best or whatever, that even the book was probably mistitled. You know, it's not that you can just work 4 hours a week and do whatever, but I think it challenged people's assumptions as to what efficiency and being economical and those things meant. So I think that's why that worked.
So now Seth Godin, like what is it what's unique about him that like has kept you kind of more or less following his work still?
I just like the way that he articulates the ideas that he has. And then now I think I just like the way, you know, there's certain ideas that he'll just pinpoint on and he has a way of expressing them and articulating them. So even now there's a lot of times where I'll read something by him and I'll be like, oh, like I was thinking something along those lines, but he just, you know, says it so clear and eloquently and often in an article so short that you can screenshot it on your phone. You know, like it's very efficient writing. So I learn a lot in terms, not just the ideas that he has, but even how to express those ideas.
Okay, so because I know you do write stuff like blog posts and like you have you send stuff in email. Do you find that he's do you model yourself after him in some ways, or like?
No,
how would that work?
I'm complimenting him on like how efficient he is, and I would say the most feedback I get is that the stuff I write is too long. So clearly, even if I was trying to model him, I'm failing very badly at it.
Yeah. There's an important takeaway here as far as like, so you've got a few things that you're doing as far as projects. By the way, I'll before you get, I've got to like mention Gary Vee. So I've been like listening to the, I would say probably like 2 summers ago. Is when I first started getting, and then but like for me, Gary Vee, then I'll take a break from him and then go back. But Gary Vee is someone like, I think right now as I'm growing this channel, I'm trying to utilize a lot of his tactics, so to speak, right? And I kind of get the gist of what he's talking about, but it's more like I'll go back to his stuff if I need like a reminder, like a kick in the butt.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So that's so I think that's how I use them. It's not like he's like, from a tactical point of view, it's not like I'm expecting anything new, although sometimes I am. So for example, for Sultan and Sneakers, I don't know if, are you on TikTok by any chance?
I am, but I'm a lurker only. I don't
Lurker?
post.
Okay. Like I'm trying to figure out like how do I create like a TikTok strategy for a podcast that's about worldviews? Specifically like religious sense, maybe like slanted towards like religion, right? And I'm just like thinking, and so that's why I listen. So I listen to a lot of his stuff because I'm just like, maybe if they're talking about TikTok, I might something might because that's what happens. Sometimes you'll listen to something like, oh, that's an idea, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then he's got like a link, like LinkedIn is right now the thing that he's always talking about because that's like the new Facebook. So when you're thinking about LinkedIn, and I'm like, well, I'm LinkedIn, and I'm like considering career change. I also do I know I'm not going to be. I don't expect to be podcasting in my day job, right?
Right.
I still have, but I still have it in there. So I'm like trying to figure out like what kind of angle can I take on LinkedIn to like also count as content for a podcast. You get what I'm saying? While
Yep.
you're having a day job, and that's something I'm still trying to work through. So that's kind of why I would kind of like get through him. But like I see what you're saying is like if you feel like it's just repetitive, you're getting just redundant, and you're not like getting anything new. Like it's a sign that you're not really growing as an individual. So I definitely get it. It's kind of like
we criticize people in our community that they go and listen to these motivational lectures and then don't do anything, and then they keep going back and listening to them over and over and over again. That's what happens a lot of time with these guys. Is you go listen to it and you feel like, oh, I should be doing that, and like, oh, this gave me a jolt, and then you go do nothing, so you start to feel bad. So you go listen to it again and get that jolt again.
I've almost found that similar as we're talking here. Like it's similar in that sense of like I know we were having this conversation about like a couple years back. I know one of the podcasts you put me onto back in the day was Art of Charm.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I heard that. Well, they got rid of their main host, and now it's just tanked. Well, he has his own show now. So like, I remember you said you stopped listening. You like got what you got out of that show, and then you kind of phased it out, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then same thing with like speakers within the Islamic circuit. There's like certain like, so for example, like Sheikh Yasser Qadi, right? I've known him. We've both very familiar with him, right? At a very personal level. My mom, like I remember Ramadan, she was telling me like, oh, his like nightly tafsir is awesome. You should check it out. Check it out. I think I listened to one of them, but it's just like when I was when I was like 24, I was like all Yasser Qadi. Like like all books, audio, everything, right? Even before I even met him. And now it's just like, and I don't know if I'm into anyone right now. It's kind of like your dad, but I see what you're saying. Like it's like, okay, I've consumed this guy's stuff, and I'm like, I need something else right now.
And also, look, it also goes back to certain things, right? Like if you want to go back to, let's say, in your 20s, when you're just gobbling all that stuff up, also keep in mind that at that moment in time, your level of familiarity with those topics was much less. Mm-hmm. So listening and plowing through all those things was really like, I would say maybe the majority was new information and new perspectives and things that you hadn't thought about or things that you hadn't learned. If we look at Al-Maghrib, when we first took Al-Maghrib classes, it was like, oh man, I wish I'd learned this stuff in Sunday school. This was all new. Well, now like 10 years out, when you've got some experience under your belt, you've kind of done some of those studies, you've heard those things a few times, it doesn't have that same effect, nor should it. You should be growing out of it a little bit. And so now I would say it's not necessarily like, oh, I'm really into this particular speaker or that speaker. I would say at this point, really, it's more if I'm looking up and need more information on a particular subject, then I'll go seek out, like, let's say I'm giving a khutbah on Friday and I'm like, man, I wonder who else has talked about this thing. Well, then I might go search Yasser Qadhi's videos to see if he's talked about it. And then I might listen to that video just to get, that information to help me with that particular subject. But it's, your needs change and they should change over time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because again, like I think most of Yasser Qadhi's material is still like for people who are still kind of, but like I've noticed that if he puts out something like, I think he was on an academic forum with Jonathan Brown, they're talking like intellectual movements within Islam. I would go listen to that. I was like, that's interesting still, right? That's maybe something that's not as basic, so to speak.
And see, for me, like I'm at the point where I think that stuff would be super interesting, but because my mind is focused on other things, I know I'm not going to be able to dedicate time to listening to it, even though I want to.
I got you. what are your in the light of that? What are your thoughts on people who like come across so just a controversial figure in the community might be someone like Mufti Abu Layth, right? I listen to some of his stuff, or like something that's really fringe. Just because I'm just curious. And I've always been curious, right? And I don't have a problem with like hearing what he has to say. But what are your thoughts about like? Do you think within any field, people get into traps where they're trying to consume material that's like more or less above their pay grade?
I would say it's not. So I want to preface this by saying I'm speaking in generalities. I'm not speaking about a particular person
Or religion. Yeah.
or even religion. No, because I'm going to use an example that has nothing to do with Islam, actually,
Okay, cool.
to
Good.
preface what I'm going to say.
Sure.
So Howard Stern, when he was super popular, everyone said that everyone was listening to him because they just wanted to see the next thing that he was going to say. That was going to shock everybody. So people that were listening to him, some people loved him, some people hated him, but everyone wanted to see what he was going to say next. And it didn't even really matter if what he was saying was useful or beneficial or good or bad. It was essentially a train wreck, and everyone just wanted to be along for the ride. I think what happens in the Muslim community, not even in the Muslim community, but I would say maybe in any field almost, is, let's talk about Islam for a second. Everything in Islam boils down to the basics. You can take the 40 hadith of Nawawi and just try to repeat that over and over and over again. Like your daily religious practice at what you're going to be judged on, what actually matters, what matters to your life and your family and all those things can probably be condensed down to those 40 lessons. Be sincere, guard the halal and the haram, have modesty, the hadith of Jibreel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everything boils down to those basics that everyone has heard 100 million times. And so there isn't anything, this is the only word coming to mind. There's nothing sexy about hearing it over and over again. There's nothing sexy about someone getting up and giving a talk on patience or on forgiveness or on repentance or on taqwa or any of those things. Because that's what we've been hearing our whole lives. We hear it over and over again, but that's the stuff that's important. Now, when someone is immersed in those topics, there is a tendency to be attracted to the novel things. So the new take or the new spin or the new thing that other people aren't talking about suddenly sounds sexy or controversial or whatever. And so people are drawn to it just because of the newness factor. And so I would say that's why now people are able to build platforms talking about feminism and liberalism and secularism and thisism and thatism, just because it hasn't been a topic that was really talked about. So the first person to jump on it, they're going to build a following just because it's new and novel, and they can have a little bit of Howard Stern mentality of saying things to get people's attention and shock them, and people are going to listen. There's nothing really that you can come and say about forgiveness or repentance or taqwa or patience that's going to be shocking and controversial, right? It's just not going to get the hits. It's not going to get the traffic. It's not going to get the attention, even though it's the thing that's most important. So I think with certain figures in the community, there is an element, especially with social media, of they will say things that are fringe because it generates controversy, it generates attention, it increases their platform, it gets them more eyeballs, it gets them more views, it gets them more validation. And so I think someone who's in the field has to be very, very particular in the sense that, am I listening to this person because I might not agree with them, but I think they have something of value to offer? Or am I just along for the train wreck like everybody else and I'm really wasting my time? And I think that's a very difficult question to answer sometimes.
Okay. When you're treading on a new subject, for example, so right now, in light of what happened with the murder of George Floyd and then the protests and the subsequent riots and all that, people are like, I see it in my feed. People are interested in learning more about race, critical race theory, these topics, social justice. When you're embarking on a field that's new to you, how do you process? Like, so do you think it's appropriate to read like continue to, as you're growing your base, read one side only, or like read two books hand in hand that are kind of like counterpoints?
you have to start somewhere. And I think, at a certain point, you either just pick something that's recommended or something that a friend tells you to read, and you start there. Um, you have to build some foundation of understanding at a basic premise before you can understand both sides of something, right? And so, if you want to take this example with racism and George Floyd and what's happening, yes. So I am personally reading books. In fact, literally the two books sitting on my desk right now. I told you I had two books on my desk. One is this one, How to Be Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. And then the other one is Islam and the Black American by Sherman Jackson. So those are the two books on my desk. And I've recently recommended a couple of other books on the topic, like on my Instagram and stuff. And now, granted, I know that they're coming to it from one perspective. It happens to be the perspective that I agree with. But to understand the quote unquote other side, it depends how deep you want to go into it and what the benefit of it is for you. I think in this case, there's having heard out some of the other side, so to speak, like it doesn't take a lot of research and a lot of reading to understand it. But for me, like the thing that's been interesting on this topic hasn't been like the, Black Lives Matter, no, all lives matter. Like that's a pretty elementary and dumb argument, if we're being frank, right?
Right.
I think the more nuanced part of it is, I saw a video pop up on YouTube where Dave Ramsey saying, let's talk about racism. And, if we're talking about like moving on from, that's one person that I stopped listening to because of his racial and political views. Like I just didn't want to listen to it anymore because I didn't fundamentally agree with his worldview on certain things. And so that video popped up and I was like, this is interesting. Let me take a listen to it, because I know that his conservative religious mindset and his views toward race are not unique to him as a white person. I know that a lot of people, for example, I'll pick on the Desi community because I'm Desi. I know that a lot of people in the Desi community would probably mirror exactly the views that he has. And so I might listen to some of that video to try to understand why he's saying the things that he's saying and how he's rationalizing them. So I might go into it from that perspective of just trying to hear that out to just better understand why they say the things that they say. But that might be the extent of it on that particular issue.
Yeah, on this topic, I would be interested. So, for example, this brother I've had on a couple of times, Abdul Rahim from the Bay, he mentions Frantz Fanon, I think, bald, some of these classical thinkers, and I don't think I would read like a white conservative's approach to like race, but like someone like Dr. Omar Johnson, people from like the Hotep movement, and these are fringe movements, but still like, so African Americans who might not be parroting the mainstream view, so to speak, just to see like, is there something else going down there? But I'm like, I was curious because like the on these issues that especially even when as I'm researching like Christianity, the mainstream position is the Trinity is a core doctrine. But you have these like Unitarians, people who like don't believe in the Trinity. They were former Trinitarians. So I've got some of their stuff too, and I'm biased to that Unitarian view, right? Yeah. So it's interesting, but it's like you're trying to navigate both. Go ahead.
I'll say this. I'll say that there's no such thing as pure objectivity. We all have biases, and I think it's, rather than try to cover them up and pretend to be objective, it's more important to say like, yes, I'm biased, right? I have a bias when it comes to the issue of race because my wife is Black and my kids are perceived as Black. So I have a very different bias and perspective on that issue than a white conservative might. And it's okay to admit that. I don't think that there's really like this, I don't know if it's an American concept or what, but I don't think that you're just going to have pure objectivity in that sense. And so at some point you have to start somewhere, know the things that are maybe negotiable and not negotiable, and be open to change if you come across something more compelling or something more correct. But you have to start somewhere and like move forward.
Great. Well, that's pretty much all I had as far as reading goes. Since the title of this show, so when I first started this channel, Sultans and Sneakers, I had no idea what I was like going to talk about. But I don't do it anymore. I used to wrap up and ask people like, what's your favorite sneaker? I don't do that anymore because I've now equated like being a sneakerhead as being a worldview and being like, and also like if you want to live under a sultanate, especially now when they're like, I know you haven't like consumed 300 hours of Ertugrul and
No, I haven't.
all the Usman and all so there's this nostalgia people have like I'll say this even in light of like what I find very odd is this I'm biased towards my own comfort. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I don't want I don't want like riots breaking into my house. Like like that would be upsetting. Right? If like somebody threw a brick through my house and like came in through and like and I was doing a podcast last night. I was like, what would have happened? Someone was like, well, you should just let them in and then offer them tea or coffee or something, just like hang out, like
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe that might be a diffuser. I don't know. Maybe that's the way to do it. Like, hey, hey guys, come on, we got come and take a break, right? And hopefully you don't see my shoe boxes. But I forgot what I was. It kind of lost my train of thought. So like this idea, but like so now I've seen people, like Muslims on social media, a very fringe group of Muslims, staying like calling for now it's a time to establish the caliphate kind of thing. We want to establish. So that this idea of like living under a sultanate is a worldview. I don't know how they're gonna be like a 10-person caliphate probably in some neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? But it's always amusing to me that they're like, bro, you live here and you're like calling for the down, like it's not going to be. You might not like survive it. I guess they're like, well, I don't know. I don't know what their take is. I'm not sure how fruitful of a conversation that would be, to be honest. But the idea is that there's worldviews around it, so I've changed the theme. I used to ask this question. I don't ask it anymore, but since you are, I know, a sneakerhead, do you have like an all-time favorite sneaker?
All-time favorite sneaker, like in general, one that I own.
In general, you don't have to like own it, and then you could tell me what you own.
My favorite is probably Jordan 5.
Jordan 5?
Jordan 5, probably grape colorway.
Okay. You don't have the grapes. Okay.
You know what? I had them. I sold them.
Which one from the 2013 iteration?
2012, 2013 iteration.
Okay, so I still have mine. I bought them at Iftar back in 20. Like I was meeting up.
The thing is, I don't collect. Whatever I have, I wear.
Yeah.
And so white sneakers for me is just way too much headache to keep up with. And those shoes, I just like them too much. I just ended up never wearing them. And I was like, this is just dumb.
And you sold them like dead stock, right?
No, I'd worn them a couple of times.
Okay. Yeah.
I recouped what I spent on them essentially.
What's your favorite pair that you own?
That I own is probably Weatherspoons.
Oh yeah. Do you have the problem though with the socks on those?
No, I just wear a little bit thicker socks.
Yeah. Like even with thicker socks, you don't have like slippage. Okay.
No. I've worn them like all day, like at a convention, like 20,000 steps or something, and been perfectly fine.
Maybe I'll get some reference, but because I've heard
get some stance socks. Stance? Yeah.
The thick stance. Okay, yeah, because I think I've worn like the thinner stance socks and they slip right off. Like,
no, you gotta go with the thicker stance socks.
Thicker. Okay. Like
I had that issue with the thin ones; they did slip.
You mean the like? Do I have not the? I don't have to go all the way to like the winter ones, do I?
No. Okay, just like the regular ones.
Regular stance. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll check. I'll get to give that a shot. That's his shop in LA and Virginia got like ramshacked.
I saw that.
It's kind of bad news. I would say my favorite's always been like the one that I don't own this model is the Jordan 11 Concord with the 23. I've got the recent version with the 45.
The 11s just aren't that. I have the Win Like 82, but they're just not that comfortable for me for some reason.
I wear the low 11s a lot. I think the lows are a little bit more
I want low 11s. That's probably, I might get those next. But I'll say my other favorite, though, other than the Weatherspoons, is probably, well, I'll say two favorites. So one is the Jordan 1 Bread Toe is probably my second favorite.
Okay.
But then in terms of what I wear the most regularly,
yeah,
I don't know, it might be embarrassing to admit, but Yeezys. They're the most comfortable shoe I've ever worn in my life.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never gone after a Yeezy because I don't know, just it's like the 350.
The boost V2.
Okay. I've never got because I've never been a because like part of the reason I'm not a Kanye guy.
Yeah, I don't care about Kanye. I don't really even listen to music in general.
Yeah.
I just really like those shoes, and they're so comfortable, man.
I thought about so do you have any Ultra Boosts?
No, just the Yeezys.
Okay, so I was going to say if you compared them to the Ultra Boost, how would they feel? Because I do wear Ultra.
I think
Boost.
the Yeezys have double the Ultra Boost from the other ones.
Really? Okay.
I think that's what it's something like that.
I might try out because the Wave Runner shoe Yeezy is something I was intrigued, like the more like the dad shoe that which I'm not familiar. I'm not generally a fan of the dad shoe model. Do you have a take on like? Because you and I are about the same age. I was interviewed for another podcast about a week ago about this topic came up. Are you very much like sentimental in the sense that like you remember the shoes that your parents didn't buy you as a kid, and then when those come out, you want them, or like what's your general like approach? Because
I remember the shoes I liked as a kid. Actually, the Jordan 5 was probably my favorite shoe when I was a kid. Like the Jordan 5 and 6. But I never. They were like too expensive, so I never got them. And Reebok Pumps. That was the other one.
Yeah.
I had that. If you really want to date ourselves, man.
Yeah.
I had the LA Regulator Pumps. You know what I'm talking about?
Those are
no, it was not LA. It was not LA Regulator. It was LA something.
LA Light. I mean, you mean LA? Not what's the LA King? Or was it LA Lights? Was it like Kareem?
I don't remember the exact name.
It was a Reebok brand.
Maybe
it was a Reebok shoe. Okay.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't Reebok. It was another company.
They used to light up.
No, they didn't light up.
It wasn't LA Lights.
No.
Because Kareem was sponsored by like LA Lights, I think, at the end of his career. It would have like a little like your shoes would. It looked like they would light.
I found them. It was LA Gear.
LA Gear. Yeah.
Yeah, it was LA Gear Pumps. And the pumps were called, the name of the model of the pump was called the Regulator. So it was the LA Gear Regulator Pump.
I think I had those too. I may have had I definitely had a pair of LA Gears.
And they came with the multicolored laces. I think that was like the first shoe with the multicolored laces.
Yeah, because I think the price point on those they're pretty cheap. So my dad.
Yeah, they were like half the price of the Reebok Pumps.
Yeah. Like the pumps, and I mentioned this on this other show. Like the first time I saw the pump was probably the first shoe I fell in love with, though.
Yeah,
when I first saw the Reebok pump, like D Brown, Michael Chain, they were endorsing it, and
I've low key kept my eye on Reebok pumps and like StockX and stuff. I've just never pulled the trigger.
I have the Michael Chang ones.
Oh, okay.
And they go for pretty high on StockX. They go for like I think 200, 250. I bought them for $50. Like at a boutique on the south side of Chicago. And it's sometimes what I've noticed is that like if you go to the right neighborhood, you might be able to pick up a shoe like that's low key. Because like if you think about if you go to the south side of Chicago, you're not gonna like really care about a pair of Michael Chang Reebok pumps.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like it's like an all white shoe with like hints of like neon and like dark green. And we just went ahead and I like $50, and I was like, I see, but that's I haven't worn them yet either, and I think, and that's the fear when you wear your shoes. Do you do the whole spray thing of a jig and like put them in plastic bags, or you just put them on?
No, I mean they're meant to be worn. I wear them.
Yeah.
And then if they get dirty, I have the cleaning stuff. I'll clean them if they get dirty, but yeah, but I wear them. Yeah,
so for me, I think I am worried about like some of my shoes that I've had for like now I am 5-6 years, like just crumbling. I don't know if it happened to 5-6 year old, but I know I've seen stuff where like people have like, pulled out like the original Jordan 5 grape and the sole just falls apart. But that's like 30 years ago, right?
Yeah. So
cool. All right. Well, hey, if anyone wants to check out your podcast and channel, where can they find you?
If they just go to ibnabiomar.com, IBNABEEOMAR.com, I think I've got everything linked to their YouTube channel, podcast, articles, email list, and all my social media is at Ibn Abi Umar. So Instagram, Twitter. Those are two I use the most.
Do you build your own website?
I use Squarespace.
Squarespace is
I did build my own website. I just got tired of. I just wanted to stop doing website building, so I moved to Squarespace.
And you would how long have you been using Squarespace?
I want to say about a year, 2 years.
Yeah. Well, I haven't I had the domain for my website. I just haven't like done anything. And like I was talking to somebody, a friend of mine. He's like, "Well, no, just use WordPress or something."
I mean, I was on Word. I left WordPress. WordPress is better if you want to be able to customize everything and make everything exactly how you want it, and all the plugins and all that stuff. I just came to a realization I just really didn't care about any of that stuff anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's like this. WordPress is like the Android. Squarespace is more like the iPhone. Like the iPhone, you're limited, but everything just works.
Okay. And how much do you how much does Squarespace charge?
I think it's like $10 a month. And then if you want to add e-commerce and stuff like that, the price goes up more.
$10 a month? But
it was not drastically different than having like your own hosting account plus WordPress and all that stuff. Yeah, because all I need is something. I need to. I've got like I think my buddy set me up on some stuff. I got to talk to him.
But like, it's Squarespace is something that even someone who's completely like tech illiterate could figure out.
Yeah, that's the whole point. You just pick a theme and just start.
Yeah, because I need to probably stuff because like I've been sitting on the domain for like months that I'm paying for, and you go to the website, it just says
and
like
look. And the thing is, like, if you don't have a background like making websites, setting up WordPress from scratch is going to be mentally overwhelming. Because if you haven't done it before, there's going to be a lot of steps to just figure out. You're going to be Googling everything. Like, how do I do this? How do I do that? Squarespace is more, you're just up and running.
$10 a month is nothing, man. That's really, and that way you have like, you could probably set up like, all I need is basically like a link to the podcast, my YouTube channel.
It gives you a home base. I would, don't overcomplicate it.
And then probably, and a place for someone to like go and, get on the email listserv, right? Cool.
If you check out my site, I've got all that set up on there.
All right, I'll definitely check it out. And like, are they sponsoring you by any chance?
No, I wish they would. I wish someone would sponsor me.
Yeah. I mean,
you got to figure out how to get us a sneaker deal.
Man, I don't know. I did a free consult for a sneaker boutique. Like they're a consignment shop in Chicago.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to start a podcast up. And then I actually offered to host their podcast. We'll see what they say.
Okay.
I haven't heard back yet because, like, I think it was funny because I was doing this. I'm interviewing one of their owners.
Okay.
And I started asking him about, like, hey, man, so where'd you grow up and all this? You grew up in, like, Colombia or something, And then he's like, hey, man, I can't talk about that. I'm like, what can you talk about? Like, that's what people want to hear. He literally said that. And I was like, I'm about to use it for a blooper and put it on TikTok. Because I had, like, the video footage of it, right?
Nice.
So, and I was like, listen, and I told them, like, guys, like, if you want to have a podcast, you can have a podcast. How about you just like, I was like, I will run your podcast for free for like 6 months, right? But the intent is what was going to happen is like, because they were going to get me, like, St. Alfred's a famous boutique here. They've got other connects or people in Chicago, like athletes and stuff that they would bring in.
Right.
For me, it would be like, the benefit for me is like, okay, I get to learn how to like, again, I mean, you'll build someone else's podcast, but which is not too different than building your own, but you also get these connections, right? And then after 6 months, you can like, hopefully the 6 month time frame is enough for someone to shadow from your team. They can shadow me,
right?
And they can take it up, or after 6 months, you can just start paying me, like whatever you want to do.
Yeah,
right? It's just the model, like, because you're exploring different angles.
Or just work for free shoes.
Yeah, I mean, something that's not a bad payment, right? The shoe. What is the shoe you've paid the most for?
Oh, that's not one we should talk about.
You don't gotta say the price. Just say what it was.
It's complicated because I didn't technically pay. I sold and then bought.
Is it the Witherspoon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember saw the yeah. So
but yeah, I got a pair of Off-Whites on raffle and sold them for more than the Witherspoons cost.
Yeah. Okay. So by the way, you got it on the sneakers app?
I got it on this. That's the only sneakers one I've ever had. That and the only two sneakers ones I've had were off-white Prestos. Not the OGs, the plain white ones. And I was lucky. I sold them like the day they showed up. I sent them to StockX because that was when the price was the highest because everyone wanted them. And then the other one that I had was there was a random Jordan restock, and I got the bread toe ones. So I got those at retail.
You know, people say there's people out there like especially like sneakerhead influencers.
Oh, and by the way, I should mention also the Weatherspoons have gone up in price since I bought them. So if you Google it now, that's not what I paid. I paid significantly less than what they're going for.
People, you know, the consignment shop that I walked into,
I could actually sell them used right now at a profit.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. So like, I think the guy asked me, he's like, would you sell them to me for $500 and they're used? Right. And I got mine retail because I hit a, so people, first of all, we're both here have hit on the sneakers app on some limited stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of people haven't hit that. So it does happen. And people automatically assume you have bots, but like, no, I mean, I was driving into work when I was like on the sneakers app, like one week, like hand on the wheel. And then like, I put my name up and then like when I pulled into a meeting and I'm like in the middle of a meeting, I'm like scrolling through and I see the alert that I got it, you know? So I guess lightning does strike sometimes, you know? I think it's interesting. Do you have regrets about the Witherspoon that you're like, you haven't, I don't know if it's Witherspoon or Witherspoon. I don't know. It spells with the O, but
yeah.
Do you have regrets that you didn't, do you think about selling them for 1,000? Like if you had them dead stock still, would you have?
If I had them dead stock, I don't know. I just like wearing them. I mean, I just like the way they look and I like wearing them. I know they're not everyone's like cup of tea. Some people are like, oh my God, it's like the ugliest shoe I've ever seen. But I'm like, I don't really care.
Yeah, I remember I showed it to my wife because I don't show my wife most of my coups.
Yeah.
But I was like, hey, look, I showed her this shoe. Like, listen, this shoe. I remember when I got those shoes, man.
Yeah.
My phone started blowing up.
Yeah, I'm sure I was one of them. I was like, how the heck do you win them on raffle?
You did, yeah. I remember you messed me right away. But like one of my friends, like he lives local, he's like, hey man, let me get them off you. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because like, but he's like my plug though. He used to be like, he used to have me a plug with like the Nike employee discount, right? And so he would give me that. I show my wife though. I show my wife the shoes, and she was like, kind of like looking at them like sideways, like, like she's like, really? She's like, you gonna sell them? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna sell them. You know?
Yeah, like my wife hates my Yeezys when I wear them. She's like, they're so ugly and they're Kanye West, and I'm like, yeah, but they're so comfortable. I just don't care anymore.
Yeah, like you know, this whole perception, and I don't want to like digress, but it's like this, like you know, when I'm wearing, I think my wife's loosened up. When I first got married, she was very particular about like that I had to dress appropriately when I was around her. She didn't care how I dressed if I was with my boys, but if I'm with her, I had to like look a certain way. And now it's just like, I think she just gave up. So whatever. All right, Omar, we appreciate you coming on.
All right,
hopefully people can benefit from this. I'm going to go ahead and cut the recording. Before that, again, follow us on the podcast apps. We're on iTunes, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. I think I got it all covered. Then we're on YouTube, and then this show will also be up. I'm going to post this on the Facebook page as well. All right, for special guest Omar Usman, I'm your host, Maheen Islam for Sultan Sneakers, signing out.